Welcome back to the 3 Hour News Show. So previously, we asked Mr. Vermonte about how these key outcomes of President Prabowo's recent visits could actually align with Indonesia's strategic priorities, Mr. Vermonte.
Right. This can be a long answer, but I'll give you a...
We have all the time in the world.
Right. Number one, I think because it happened right after the inauguration of President Prabowo, and then the fact that this visit to these various and meetings in the various platforms, APEC, G20, and other bilateral meetings, resulted in this $18.5 billion in investment. I think tell us something. Number one, Indonesia is trusted by investors, by our partners, economic partners, and so on, as a place where they can invest and they can bring good results for Indonesia as well as their own interests, which is something that President Prabowo would want to have. That is, we are collaborating and we are in the mood of cooperation. That's kind of trust needs to be maintained and needs to be earned. And I think the visit has shown that President Prabowo has been successfully gained that kind of trust from these various international partners. Number two, I think, as per your first question about navigating the rivalry, geopolitical rivalry of the two superpowers has always been difficult because superpowers, but Indonesia being a middle power, but big country in terms of economy. We are part of G20, which is a group of 20 countries that have the largest economic size. So Indonesia should navigate, and I think from the visit we know that we've been navigating well to a large extent. Number three, I think it also highlights the fact that our region, Asia Pacific, because the meeting was that was APEC meeting, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, and then G20 meeting, hosted in the Pacific countries, Peru and Brazil. They are Pacific countries, but at the same time they are developing countries, meaning as hosts, they could actually promote agenda that developing countries like Indonesia are on the same page. For example, problem of poverty, problem of inequality, and then problem of creating jobs, and then problem of development. So these meetings and these visits to various platforms in the Pacific, I think is a rare opportunity for President Prabowo in Indonesia to get together with developing countries, advancing our interest of development, and also talking about climate change and then food security and so on, which I think these are the main issues faced by most of developing countries. And that visit highlight this agenda of domestic priorities of President Prabowo, right? He wants to tackle the problem of poverty, stunting, and so on, food security, and these issues were brought into this international platform by the president because of the opportunity. So, in short, right, the meetings, the visits that President Prabowo had done in these various platforms had actually linked our national interest with global collaboration. That's, I think, areas where this visit in various countries have been very important. Lastly, I think APEC and G20 are multilateral platform, meaning there are a lot of countries. G20, of course, 20 countries. APEC, about the same, countries from Asia Pacific. So it's a big organization, right? And then, of course, you need to follow up with some bilateral meetings and minilaterals, if you will. And that were done as well by President Prabowo. He had bilateral meeting with President Biden. He had bilateral meeting with Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. and as well leaders of UAE
And Prime Minister
Peru,
Albanese as well.
Albanese from Australia, and then in Brazil, and he even met with Tanzanian president and
Yes.
so on. So it highlights the fact that President Prabowo used all possible means in terms of diplomacy and international relations to advance Indonesia's economic and strategic interests. So that, I think, for Indonesia, a very important start, because President Prabowo was just inaugurated in October 20th, and this is only 1 month, right?
Been busy.
But he's been
so busy.
very, very busy, and that's, I think, should send signal to us in Indonesia as well, that Indonesia is an active member of international community,
Yes.
and we are a responsible country, willing to work together with other countries, tackling climate change, the effect of climate change, poverty, and so on. And this is very important as well for Indonesians at home. We should feel like we are part of this global community.
Yes.
So while we need to have some sort of sense of national pride and so on, which is very important, but at the same time, there are a lot of problems that we cannot handle it alone. Climate change, you need cooperation.
Yes.
We just graduated from pandemic, and as we know, pandemic needs massive collaboration.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? Through international organizations, bilaterals, and so on, in terms of vaccines and arranging and controlling traveling cross-border and so on and so forth. So I think the main message to the Indonesian citizens is that we are a responsible member of international community, and with the international community, we can actually achieve our national interest together through these various international platforms.
I actually really agree with your statement about we Indonesians is actually a global player, middle power, and also this visit should actually emphasize to Indonesians that we have to act like a global citizens rather,
Right.
And we have to think broader than that. But also there is actually a growing curiosity, Mr. Vermonte, because some analysts said that Indonesia's foreign policy may be shifting eastward with growing attention toward Russia. Now, how does Indonesia maintain its long-standing, free and active stance in this context?
I think the visit just showed us that President Prabowo visited both capitals, Beijing and Washington, D.C. In itself, it's a testament for a long-standing commitment of our free and active foreign policy. But I think we need to remember as well, free and active foreign policy doesn't mean we are neutral. It means strategic autonomy, and we define our national interest when we are interacting with whoever, with major
Various
powers,
parties,
with smaller powers, with international organizations. So our interest, our national interest, actually should not be defined by the nature of relationship between the superpowers, because we have our own national interest. So that's, I think, what we need as well to emphasize when we are talking about free and active foreign policy.
So we have our own national interest. That's what everybody needs to understand and
That's true.
remember, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the growing tensions in the South China Sea, what is Indonesia's stance on ensuring regional stability and maintaining its sovereignty?
Indonesia has been an active member of Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN organization, ASEAN. Indonesia has been working together with ASEAN countries in order to fasten the process of finalization of code of conduct in South China Sea. That would help, the Southeast Asian countries in dealing with the overlapping claims in South China Sea. So that has been Indonesia's commitment because Indonesia has been acting as a bridge, trustable, honest broker when it comes to overlapping claims. But of course, we need to as well understand there are a lot of overlapping claims, sovereignty overlapping claims in other parts of the world that have not been resolved up until today, right? So it will take time, and then there would be negotiations and talks, which is good, and that ASEAN has been the main platform for Indonesia and ASEAN to find some understanding among these countries in the South China Sea. So I think that will continue, that Indonesia still and was the country that proposed the principle of autonomy, if you will, non-interference policy in Southeast Asia, and then promoting peace and stability through various initiatives to ASEAN. If you check the history of ASEAN, it is about transforming a region of conflict into a region of cooperation.
Yes.
Because when ASEAN was started in 1967, the region was filled with conflicts among neighbors. And then Indonesia then initiated and started the talk to establish ASEAN, so that then you can actually focus on development in each country, respecting sovereignty. And if we go back to history, it was established during the height of Cold War period, the ideological war between the US and Soviet Union at the time. And then Indonesia came with this idea of, all right, it is a ideological conflict between the two, but we want our region to be free from that. Right? If you want to cooperate with Southeast Asian countries, be our guest. But both of you and other major powers, you have to follow what we've been decided in the region. That is, you respect, our sovereignty, right? Striving for peace, cooperation with ASEAN members, and it's a region free of nuclear weapons and so on. And so far, ASEAN has been, I think, successful in doing so, that all these major powers become our dialogue partners. They respect these principles. And it took a long time, more than 30 years to establish that. But when you put it in the historical line, it seems now to be short time, right? 30 years, but it's actually short in a longer historical timeline. Now it's the same thing with the problem of overlapping sovereignty claim in South China Sea. So what I think Indonesia will continue to do is, continuing this dialogue and negotiation through South China Sea, in the South China Sea problem, so that the problem will not be resulting in open conflict. So we want to have peace, and it is in the interest of everybody in Southeast Asia, because people see Asia and Southeast Asia as engine of growth globally.
Yes.
We've been recording impressive economic growth. Right? Even during the pandemic, Indonesia grew by 5%, and our neighbors, recorded as well pretty good high economic growth during the pandemic.
Yes.
Meaning this is the engine of growth. So, conflict is not our best option. And that's why President Prabowo, I think in many forums, repeatedly saying that Indonesia's interest is cooperation. We don't want to engage in conflict, or we don't want to stay afar from. If we see conflicts in our part of the world, Indonesia will try to transform that into cooperation.
Well, Mr. Vermonte, let's stay in that tone of conversation, and also Indonesia's commitment to maintaining peace and stability,
Right.
but apply it to the other region with other issues. Now, we shift to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Now, what role does Indonesia intend to play in advocating for peace in the Middle East? As we all knew that it has been the long-standing stance of Indonesia. In the previous administration, Ibu Retno Marsudi has been performing really strong, and also our 7th President Joko Widodo also performing really strong on this stance of Middle East. But given its position as the world's largest Muslim majority country, how does Indonesia intend to play in advocating in this particular issue?
Yeah, I think Indonesia and President Prabowo had been repeatedly saying this as well, right? That Indonesia is in favor of the cause for Palestine. It's been a long-standing position since Sukarno era, held dearly by the successive presidents, from President Suharto, and then Habibie, Gus Dur, SBY, President Joko Widodo, and now President Prabowo. That's, I think, the main principle that would be held consistently by Indonesia. Number two, this is the problem of, according to our leader statement, that this is about sovereignty. It's about territorial occupation, which Indonesia has always been, against of, because we are part of the new nations back in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and we were freeing ourselves from occupation and so on. So that solidarity would always be part of our foreign policy. Whenever Indonesia sees this, I think that kind of principle would be held as a priority. And number three, Indonesia is as well part of various organizations. And I think we've been consistently stating our position in this, in the United Nations meetings, or in the OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference. So we've been consistent in that particular issues.
All right, so Presidential Spokesperson Mr. Phillips J. Vermonte, thank you so much for being here with us in the studio. And it's a very interesting conversation.
Yes.
And also, please extend our regards and gratitude to Mr. President for having a very fruitful trip the last 16 days, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I will pass that on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that was our conversation regarding the late trip of President Prabowo Subianto. And now we are going for another break.
And after the break, Kai will deliver the economics and business updates. So stay tuned right here on the 3-Hour News Show on See You Today.